Okay. Welcome to Love Bay Radio. I am your host today, Dr. P. They call me Dr. PERILLIAT, but for short, Dr. P. And I want to welcome you to the Blue Sky Show. It's been a while since I've been here. Many of you probably heard some of our conversations on Can We Have a Conversation? And so I'm your surprise guest today. We have a person that we're going to have. Well, I'm your surprise host, and we have a surprise guest that's getting ready to show up from Philadelphia, South Philly. And I think it'll be a great conversation. I think you all can tune in, tell your friends about this conversation, because it's talking about mental health. It's talking about dealing with PTSD. It's also talking about, as you all know, if you know me, fatherhood and the importance of fathers being in their children's lives, and what happens when fathers are not in their lives, and what kind of decisions do they make, and how does it affect their behavior and their outcomes in life. And so I think we're going to have a real good hour to have a conversation with a gentleman named Tig Matic. Tig Matic, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. So I'm talking to the audience in Canada and throughout the world. I don't know if you know, but this radio broadcast goes over about 150 countries, and it's live right now out of Canada.
All right, hold on. I'm still having audio issues. For some reason, you're still kind of low. I'm sorry about that. Give me 1 sec. I have to try to get this set.
Give us a few minutes and we'll come right back. So some of the topics that we will discuss today will be on this man's life and how being at the wrong place at the right time caused an impact in his life in a way that created a story that he can share with his audience today. And so this story, I think, is a common story within many of our urban communities. And unfortunately, some struggle worse than others, but there's an overcome, and the overcome comes in the faith of believing. And I believe this young man has overcome some of his problems and issues in life, which he had taken it into music. And music is his love, and that's how he exercised his way of giving back and dealing with people that struggle with mental health as well as himself. And so I hope this is a show that you will enjoy. And when he comes back, we can start the conversation.
Okay, I'm back. I can hear you way better now.
All right, all right. So if you could kindly introduce yourself to the audience, let them know your first name, your last name, and then tell them your stage name and where you're from.
Okay, my name is Rashawn Whitaker, also known as Tig Matic. I'm from the South Philadelphia area. Philadelphia native, but I live in North Carolina right now. And I am a rapper, entrepreneur, actor. I'm a bit of everything, a jack of all trades, if you will. Rapper, actor, performer, beat maker, a little bit of everything.
Okay, okay. So tell me, I know that were you a DJ or someone in Philadelphia on a radio station or anything like that?
No, so okay. So I'm a radio personality as well, so I did leave that out. I am a radio personality as well. I was a radio personality for WJXN, Two Raw for Radio, and now I am a radio personality for Music Dreams USA Radio.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. And
Yeah.
let me ask you this. You also said you have a podcast. You have 2 podcasts. Is that correct?
Yes, I have the podcast with Tig Matic and Stirring the Pot with Tig Matic.
Okay. Okay. Tell us a little bit about that when they say stirring the pot with Tigmatic?
Okay, so I'll start with the pot first because the stirring the pot is the spinoff. Okay, so the pot podcast is more mental health based. It's a mental health based show. We talk about the struggles artists go through while still having to entertain the world. Uh, we have all walks of life. I've interviewed anywhere from Jason Bloom, who's written songs for Britney Spears with 50 million in sales worldwide, all the way down to underground artists as well. I recently had presidential candidate Cornel West on. I had Simon One Punch Cars, a boxer who's known all over the world. I've had quite a few people on my show. I had Ballin' for Peace on, all sorts of people, but we talk about, their stories, their experiences, and how they overcame them while still pursuing their career.
So how did you get started with the podcast?
Okay, so after being on WJXN, I was on WJXN. The host decided he wanted to do something different. So I was no longer a co-host of his show. After that, I decided that I wanted to try my own thing, and I started the pot. Well, when I first started the pot, I didn't really know where it was going to go, right? As if anyone does when they first try things, right? But I knew what I wanted the show to be about, and I wanted the show to be about people's experience. And it came to be about because me, myself, I went through a traumatic experience. And that was in 2011. I got shot in the back of my head by somebody I did not know, lost a piece of my brain over it. It made me a person with PTSD. Going through therapy, I've learned a lot along my journey, right? So I understand what it is to be an empath for people and their experiences. So with that being said, as I did that, I decided to interview people so they can share their experiences, how they overcame their experiences, and what they got going on now. And it's been great. It's been a great experience. And it's like therapy for me too, in a way.
Yeah, I was reading your bio and I was reading about the fact that you do music, and I have a son and he does music. And my son, his senior year, he had to, endure the pandemic, and how that affected him as a kid during his senior year, during football season, basketball season, and
Sure.
just the fact that he had to be in the house in a room on a Zoom call when he should be around his peers. And so when I'm hearing you talk, I was thinking about him this morning, and the fact that that's the way that he deals with his traumas, because that was a very traumatic time during that pandemic time for kids and teenagers and youth, to try to navigate through this time where they had to be shut in. They couldn't go out. They was restricted where they could go. All they had access to was social media. And so it is therapy for him when he does his music. And I said,
Absolutely.
why don't you, write about, life in general, write about how that impacts you, because I work with mental health as well. And
Right.
and so I'm telling him, as he writes this lyrics down and he begins to, produce them, that's therapy. It's kind of like writing in a journal, man, but it's telling his story. And so I'm loving the fact that you're giving back, telling your story, and opening up the dialogue to have that type of conversation.
Right.
A lot of young people, man, they're dealing with PTSD, maybe the way you did, maybe not. I'm a Marine. And so that post-traumatic stress disorder was really a military term at one time. But I've
Right.
always said, if you grew up in the hood anywhere, I don't care if it was Texas, New York, California, if there's an urban community and there's drugs and crime, then that's just like you in the war zone. you know.
Absolutely. And it can be rough for a lot of us. And like I said, for me, it was the fact that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know what I'm saying? And where I'm from in South Philly is a rough part anyway. And I wasn't even on the side of where I'm from. I was in a whole different area of South Philly. So it was like I didn't belong over there to begin with.
Okay.
So, when that happened to me, I experienced what I experienced. I was still conscious with the bullet in my head. So, it was a rough experience. So to go through that, I had to deal with the fact that somebody tried to kill me, and it was very hard to get over for the first maybe 5 to 7 years. Um, and it made it hard for me to create as a creator, as far as a rap artist and a beat maker as well, because a lot of the times that I would start in the beginning, uh, a lot of flashbacks would happen to me early on,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And like you said, as a Marine, you go through it too because it's rough. So you can envision certain things. And every time I would hear certain beats or certain sounds, it would take me back to that moment. So I would have those, like staring off moments. And it's like, oh, and my wife is like, oh, what's wrong? And I'm like, oh, nothing. But it's really something wrong. But with that being said, I was easily triggered. I would get angry, and sometimes it still happens from time to time, depending on the situation and depending on the person, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I've learned how to keep it under wraps for the most part. And life has been going a whole lot better since I started this show because it's therapy for myself and I get to serve others. And that's what I'm really about more than anything else, serving people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How old were you when this event took place?
Uh, so I was 29 years old when it happened. And yeah, I was 29. So yeah, I was 29.
You know, one thing I will share with you is I also struggle with PTSD. I actually been diagnosed for it for the military. I'm a disabled veteran because of PTSD.
Right.
And so I'm not a person that is you talking to that don't understand what that consists of. I am very aware of the diagnosis as well as the flashbacks and the things that comes along with it. And so you know, just as a person sharing some knowledge, you know, when you're in those situations and those things happen, we have to always remember that our emotions responds through those things. You know what I mean? And our emotions is temporarily, but somehow we got to learn how to deal with the fact that we know it's not a reality, even if it comes back. And
Absolutely. That's one of the hardest parts of PTSD. And I don't think for some people, for me, it's even worse because I had memory loss because of it, right?
Mhm.
Some things I remember, even if it's something small, you know what I'm saying? I might be told to do something and I might not do it. And people be like, yo, you were supposed to do this, you were supposed to do that. And it slipped my mind because, I go through what I go through because of it. But
Right.
sometimes when you're triggered, you might even forget where you are and you might just snap out on people and they're not really understanding why that side of you is coming out when you
Mhm.
just went from the most calmest person to the most
Mhm.
angry person in the world. And
That's
it's
right.
because of what happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So some people can sympathize with it, some can't. And that's okay too. Life goes on. Life be lifing, as they say.
Yeah. 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 So tell me about your life of growing up in South Philly, man. Tell me what was it like for you growing up in the town of South Philly?
Uh Man. Okay. So to be honest, for me, life was hard. Life was hard because I've been almost dying my whole life. Right. So I'll say I remember I must have been maybe about 3 or 2, something like that. I swallowed a Lego and choked off of a Lego and they had to rush me to the hospital. and they had to pull the Lego out my throat, and I almost died from choking to death. Right. That was as early on. So, as a kid, I was a kid who was troubled already because I had daddy issues. I was one of those kids who didn't have a daddy. And so I got in a lot of trouble. You know what I'm saying? I got in a lot of trouble. And I decided to, get into things in my neighborhood, things that comes with the culture of my neighborhood. I was a part of the street life for a little second, knowing that I didn't come from that for real, but I still chose it anyway. And, I made a lot of bad decisions. And, I got shot at once. I got hit in the leg once. And, that was like a scrape, though. So it didn't take anything away from me. So when I got shot in the head, it was like a wake up call. Get up out the street. Like, get up out the street, change your life. My oldest son was being born at the time. It's time to get out the street. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I did. I got up out the street. I moved to the South and I raised my kids. I got 2 kids now and I got a wife and I'm living my life. You know what I'm saying? So it was a lesson to be learned on that. God was protecting me through it all because God decided to save me. And being dead, because I literally was dead, I saw the other side and I saw what that was like. And I saw my grandma, who was already dead for 2 years, and she told me I didn't even belong there. So it was like, all of that did something for me, which is why I decided to straighten up and fly right, as they say. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So life for me was a little different than most people who just usually say they just became a product of their environment. If they was from the hood, it was a little different for me because I had a stepfather at one point in life. He was very good to me, but I didn't want to listen to him either. I got sent to the system. I was in the system for 8 years of my life, came home, and I went right back to the same things. I was a young knucklehead, and the beauty out of that was the music. I decided to become a rapper when I was very young, and I was rapping with, some folks, my folks in the Lions Den squad that became Lions Den Records later on. And we did some things together. We made music, and then I became absent from that because I still was choosing the wrong thing yet again. I started to run around with the wrong people, and life became life the way it was. And once I decided to slow down was the moment that I got shot in the head. So that was God's way of telling me, get all the way out of the street, stop, being somebody that I didn't want you to be to begin with, but, as they say, when life's, your back is against the wall, you make decisions that aren't good decisions. And that's what I did at that time,
Yeah, you mentioned God, man. I'm trying to figure out, of course you would have to be a believer.
Absolutely. I'm a full believer. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Let's make that clear.
I like that. Matter of fact, I love that. So that takes the conversation to a whole nother level.
Absolutely.
But I was thinking, I said, now I know this brother, he's been shot in the head and he survived, which is a miracle in itself.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you had flash for a minute and got a chance to see the other side.
Absolutely.
So everything moving forward is a bonus for you in terms of working for the Lord, because he saved you for a reason, man.
Absolutely. Every day that I wake up, man, you know how some people wake up grumpy? I'm the total opposite of that. I wake up super excited about life. I'm super happy to see the air, the sun, the grass, that smell the air. Every day I wake up super happy. Now, as life goes on, life is life. Things happen. But other than that, I don't really let things, get me down that much, even when it's people, places, and things that try to do that.
Right.
And that is because of the God I serve, and I won't decide to let the enemy have a hold on me. Even when I'm outside myself and I get angry, once I calm down, I realize like, oh man, I just gave him a moment. You know what I'm saying? And I literally just had a moment. I'm not going to talk about that in detail, but I literally just had a moment, and I had to dial back and was like, yo, I just gave that moment to the enemy. Like, what am I doing? So
Absolutely.
sometimes because of this PTSD thing, I get beside myself, and I have to pray in order for me to stay stable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the only thing that's going to keep you stable, man.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad that you know that, because the one thing is when he preserved your life for a time like this, the enemy is not happy, and
That's
because
a
he
fact.
would preferred you to be dead, and so because you're not dead, there's a target on your back that he's going to try to kill you. Like you
Absolutely.
said, you try to get out the life, but then you got drawn back into the life.
Yeah, like right after I got hit, I went right back. Like, and my wife was devastated. Like what are you doing? Like, God spared you, and this is what you want to do. And I was, at that point in time, I didn't give my life to Christ fully, so I was like, oh look, I'm not trying to hear that, and I was doing my own thing, and I was just out of pocket, and I just didn't know how to really deal with that yet, because I still wasn't over the fact that someone tried to kill me.
Right.
Honestly,
Well,
it was a hard road for me, because every time in public I was on go. I was ready to do whatever to whoever, because something happened to me,
right.
and that was the triggering part of my life for a nice little minute, and it was hard to deal with, but by the grace of God, like I said, I'm here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's the I talk, and I talk with men and work with men all across the country, man. If not the world, I mean, even in the Bahamas, I've had sessions with men, and it's the same thing, especially men of color. Uh, that respect and that sense of control, emotional control. We haven't been taught that, man. And our emotions and the way we respond is quickly towards violence. I had spoke about Violence Awareness Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I actually went in as a keynote speaker and spoke at San Quentin about that. And I was saying that a lot of times we as men respond from our emotions, which is temporarily, and we don't really
Absolutely.
take the time to think about the results or what it's going to cost me, or how much it's going to cost my family. We just deal with the moment right then, not knowing that emotions is temporarily, that can change depending on how you change. You
Right.
understand what I mean? As long as
I
you,
understand fully.
yeah, as long as you respond to it in a
Jonathan,
way.
I'm glad that you can relate. Jesus rescued you too, man. That's dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's dope.
Yes, sir. So anyway, man, I want to talk about, okay, you had your you grew up with two siblings. You're the youngest, oldest. What are you?
So I'm the middle child, actually.
Okay.
Um, I have an older sister and I have a baby sister.
Okay. So two
Hmm.
sisters and a brother. Okay. You the
Yeah, my
brother.
brother's deceased. Yes.
Yes, sir. And so growing up without a father, how did that go? You know, how did that work out? I mean, because I think we had a conversation off. You said that you had some interactions with your father, but
Yeah, now, you know, don't charge it to my heart, family, if y'all watching it, but y'all gotta understand I have memory loss. I have a piece of my brain missing the size of a golf ball. So the memories that I do have, it's about 4 of them. It might be maybe 5 or 6, but I only can remember 4 to be exact. But I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm gonna tell the truth. Um, I'm not gonna lie either. So for me, there was no real relationship. You know what I'm saying? God rest his soul, but there was no real relationship. So for me, that made me a troubled kid, you know, because I was one of those kids that used to be like, oh, he is coming. He would tell me he's coming, but he never came. So I was one of them as a kid, you know, that really desperately wanted that relationship. And as I got older, that started to cease for me, you know, that it ceased like really quick, you know. So when I did see him, we didn't really speak about much. I even had a job working at the same place that he was at, and we didn't even really talk. So it was like he didn't reach out to me and come talk to me and none of that. Like, it was let me get a cigarette, and that was it. Like, you know, so we didn't really have much of a relationship. So for me, it was a tough time, but I got through it. And like I said, the thing that made it great for me was I took all of that anger and put it into the music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It made me an angry man as an early adult as well. And it was like a big part of the reason why I had a lot of anger. So, you know how most men, when they get older and they have anger issues, but they don't realize that they still that little boy on the inside that's still angry at the one person that made them angry.
Right.
I was that guy at one point in life. And it took me a while to realize that about myself, and I had to let that go. You know what I'm saying? As I let it go, things started to become better for me in relationships with people and things like that. But it was a very hard situation to begin with, but I got through it, you know, thanks to my wife and my family. You know, the family that I have down here with me, they're very supportive. My in-laws, I love y'all. If y'all watching, shout out to y'all, because without y'all, it would have been hard for me. Life was hard for me, and y'all know that. So yeah, man, it was a tough time for me at one point, but I got through it. Once I let things go, I began to heal, and you know, life started to get a whole lot better as far as that right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate your transparency, man, because
Absolutely. I'm a transparent guy. That's what I believe in. And I think that's what makes my show what it is, because I like to be transparent. And a lot of people look at it as weird. You know, I don't really care for that, because I understand that my story could help somebody else.
Absolutely.
So if somebody look at it weird, it's because it's not for them. If you look at it that way, it's not for you. So it is what it is, you know?
Absolutely. So when was the first time you met your dad?
Well, that I remember, man, as an adult, or
first time that you had any interaction with your father?
Well, the only one interaction as a kid that I remember is there were like then this was a good memory. I have bad memories and good memories. So out of those 4 memories, so the one memory I remember being, you know, I must have been like a little baby or whatever, and he was driving me. He had like a green dune buggy or whatever, and I was on his lap trying to drive that. Trying to drive the car, so he was letting me like steer the wheel as he was pushing on the gas and whatnot. So that's one memory. Like I said, another time we were working the same job, and the only conversations that we would have was, "Let me get a cigarette." Like, you know, that's as far as that went. You know,
how long did you guys work together?
I actually quit because of that. Honestly, to be honest, because he didn't really talk to me. So it was like I felt like he got me the job. He had the pull to get me the job, got me in the job, but barely spoke to me. So it was like, what am I here for? Right. You know what I'm saying? And so that didn't last. It probably lasted about maybe 3 months, something like that.
So he didn't know how to talk to you, probably. What do you think?
Hey, I can't speak for him.
Let me ask.
What I think was, you know, I think that he knew he messed up with me, and he just he messed up with me real bad, and he seen the person that I was trying to become, and he didn't know how to handle talking to me because honestly, I didn't respect him. I
Okay.
didn't talk to him disrespectfully though. That was the weird thing about it. I literally told him I didn't have respect for him. Now I did say I didn't F with you like that, you know what I'm saying? But other than that, like I didn't really talk to him for real. So it was like it was what it
Yeah,
was, you know.
yeah, yeah. Did you know anything about his father, his relationship with his father?
I met my grandfather, but I still don't really know much about my grandfather. No.
Was he in his life, or do you know?
I could not tell. I mean, I know he was in his life to a certain point, I guess, you know. I couldn't really tell you much about that because I don't, you know, we didn't have a relationship, like I said. And
Right,
so
right.
that's not something that I would really, you know, speak on because I can't speak on that man and his father's relationship. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
yeah.
yeah, you
Let
know.
me. Hey, so you had mentioned, and this is a big thing. You had mentioned that you had done some time, right? Was it county?
No,
Was
I
it some
never.
time?
I did time in the system, but not in
Okay,
juvenile, not as an
okay,
adult.
juvenile.
I have
Okay,
no
okay.
criminal record as an adult, thank the Lord, with everything that, you know,
So, how
statute
old
of
were you when you were
limitations.
in the
But
system in juvenile?
but you know, as an adult, I kind of kept my hands squeaky clean no matter what I was doing. You
Oh,
know,
good, good. How old was you when you went into the system?
12.
12 years old. It's a common number. You know,
No,
what is
11. No, 11.
11?
Yeah, yeah.
And you did a year, 6 months? What'd you do? 3 months?
I did 8 years. I
Oh,
came
you
out
did
at
eight.
18. Yeah.
Okay. So what did you commit? What kind of crime was it?
Uh, I was stealing cars and I was truant. I was very truant. I had 102 cuts. The truancy is what really got me sent, and I wasn't supposed to be there as long. I
Hmm.
was only supposed to be there for 8 months, and every time I went back to the judge was like, "Oh no, he need more time," because I was doing stuff while I was in there. So you know,
Okay. Okay.
I
Okay.
was constantly in fights. I didn't get along with people. You know, like I said, I was a troubled kid. You know what I mean? So, um, the more time that I was supposed to spend to get out, I spent more time finding
Staying
a
in.
way to
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know that this is the thing which is unfortunate but very common in most, like I said, in urban communities. The people that grow up without fathers, they have that history of anger. They have that history of rejection or abandonment issues, and a lot
Right.
of times it turns into violence. And it's, you know, the thing that happens is, you know, that father is the person who's really actually supposed to give you your foundation. He gives
Right.
you your identity. He actually shows you what it is to be a man. And
Absolutely.
when you lack those fundamental principles, then somebody else has to fill in. They don't have to, but it just happens that they do. And
Yeah, I
that's
had that
when,
though. I
yeah,
had that for a minute, for 13 years actually.
yeah, yeah.
I had a stepfather, and his name, you know, I'm not going to disclose his name, but he stepped in and he taught me a lot of things. You know, he taught me about romance. He taught me, how to cut hair. He taught me how to, stay sharp, how to wear a suit, how to wear a tie, do a tie, and all sorts of things. You know, he taught me a lot. And even though I was in the system when I would come home for the weekend, because they let me do home visits at one point. At first, it wasn't that, but then once it became home visits, I
Hmm.
would come home on the weekend, and I really didn't stay home on the weekends long. But when I was there, we would have a lot of deep talks, and he was getting through to me, whether he knows it or not. He was getting through to me. It's just that, the fact that I had to go right back to the system come Sunday night, it was like, I'm
And they
going
had
right back to
influence
this.
too.
So like, what difference do it make?
Yeah.
And Yeah, so like that was a hard part. So when I did come home, he was still trying to reach me, but when I came home, it was like everything is going in one ear and out the other. You know, I came back in my last year of high school, and then I dropped out because I was out there messing with women and things like that. And I was one of them kids that thought I was about to have a kid. So I dropped out, start going to night school, but dropped out to take on 2 jobs. So I was working 2 jobs, and, you know, life was life, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, so at that moment, come to find out that person was just lying. They was just getting fat, and it was just using me for the check. But you know what I'm saying? But you know, I had to go back and get my GED eventually, and yeah, you know, it was hard. You know,
So
it was hard for me.
when was the turning point in your life? You know, from the time of being put in the system, uh, not having a father, having a stepfather, knowing
Honestly,
you.
the turning point in my life, I would say April 22nd, 2010. That was the day I got married.
Okay, and tell
That
me
was the
about
day,
that.
you know, that was the day I married my wife, and she was everything I needed, you know. And from the time that we met, you know, our morals aligned, and you know, she was always in the church, and I come from a family that comes from the church as well. So I was going to church, but then I stopped going to church. And then she, you know, then I became Muslim, but then I converted back to Christianity. So it was like I was on a toss up. I was trying to find myself, and she was everything I needed, and she still is everything I need because we're still together till this day. You know, um, but that was the turning point. But I still didn't let go of the life that I was trying to live when I already had a life right there for me in front of my face.
So you
And
had
God
one foot
already
in
had
and one
padded a
foot out.
line for me to live that life, and I just couldn't see beyond my own self. And sometimes as men, we can be selfish like that. So anybody watching, I would say, don't follow those footsteps. When you find your one, worry about that, not what you think you need, because everything you need is right there. You know what I'm saying? Stick with that. And you know, 21 years later, you know, we still here, you know, thank the
Amen.
Lord, you know, and you know, that's the thing I'm proud of most, that I have someone that I can say has been there through thick and thin, you know.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that I'm proud to say, that, you know, as a husband, I did everything the way God designed it. I didn't have kids out of wedlock. I got married first, then I had my kids, and you know, I'm down in the South now, you know, and God has been blessing me time after time after time after time. Even when I don't see things, He checks me and convicts me so that I can see myself. Um, Even with this PTSD thing in my life. So uh, without someone solid and a solid foundation, you know, via the Lord, you know, without that, I would, you know, I would be lost out here, to be honest, you know, because I would be like any other man out here with this same issue, just out here destroying himself.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes, I'm glad to hear that, man, because uh, you know, a lot of times when men grow up without a dad, they do have some abandonment issues,
I
and they
definitely
got
had abandonment issues. I had them
they,
on both sides in a way. It
yeah,
wasn't, you know, I had them on mom's side and dad's side. My mom was there, but she wasn't there. You know
right,
what I'm saying?
right,
So,
right.
um, yeah, you know, I had it both ways, and you know, even to this day, I still go through it on the other side, even though that one is dead. So,
So
you know,
how do you deal with that in your relationship in terms of, trust issues, abandonment issues, rejections in terms of someone. How did you get to the place that you trusted her? Because I'm sure there was a time that you didn't have trust, especially.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I can be real. Early on, I had trust issues with women because I was heartbroken by a woman before her. And
Mhm.
God already had shown me that she was my one from the moment. You know how most people, when they go on their first date, they try to go all out and spend a whole bunch of money. We didn't do that. Our first date was like a movie. We went for a walk in the park.
Mhm.
We had a walk in the park, and we walked and we talked, and it was like the best thing ever. You know what I'm saying? And we spoke on morals and life, and the things that mattered most to me were the same things that mattered to her. So when God showed me that, like, listen, this is what I have for you, you'd be a fool to mess it up.
Right.
And I along the way I've made a lot of mistakes. We make mistakes in life. So, but even with the mistakes, I've learned from them, and I'm continually learning as I go through life, because marriage within itself is not easy either. And a lot of people
Absolutely.
think marriage is just a contract. It's really not.
Mhm.
You made a vow to God, under God, and it's up to you to protect your vow. And people look at it as a contract. It's so much more. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of thinking. It's more than a lifestyle and a way of thinking. If you really think about it, it's committing to something greater than yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's what I would say. Yeah, that's what keeps me grounded. Still, my wife, my
What?
kids, my in-laws, you know, they support me. They're there for me even when I'm down on my down days, and I'm so thankful to have them. I'm lucky, because without that, like I said, I probably would be out here making bad decisions and doing a lot of the wrong things, like I was before.
So you say you have kids. What kind of how's your relationship with you and your kids?
Oh man, I love my kids. I love my kids. I ain't gonna say daddy of the year, but I'm daddy. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I do what I need to do. I take care of my kids. I have a relationship with my kids. I teach my kids. I speak on God with my kids. And that's what we do. We have a great relationship. I like to talk with them, play games with them, go through life with them. And being a dad is a learning experience, and it's very fun within itself. So um, that's one of my greatest accomplishments, marrying my wife and having children. You know, being a dad is the best thing in the world to me.
Amen. So how did you learn to father? Not having a father, what did you do different?
Ooh, that's a great question. Because when you don't have the example, right, it can be hard. It can be hard because you're trying to figure things out, right? But luckily, I have a father-in-law who has been there for me the whole 21 years. My son, my oldest, is 12, so I have 12 years of being a father, and 9 years of being a father. So my youngest is 9, my oldest is 20. So
Okay.
throughout this time, I've had examples, and my brothers-in-law, both of them. I have examples. So to watch them be an example, and to actually think about things, and the first thing that's always in the back of my mind is, don't make the same mistakes my dad made. You know what
Mm,
I'm saying? So that's the mantra I live by, full fledged. You know what
mm.
I'm saying? So yeah, man, that's one of the things that keeps me going as a dad to father, and the Bible, and praying.
How do you said something. How do you not become your dad when that's a part of your DNA?
Well, although I look exactly like my dad, and I do have some of his traits, how I didn't become like him is I'm clean for one. Because I did smoke weed at one point in life. Um, I'm clean. I pray once again. I read the Bible. I put God first in everything I do. I pray. I learn. And that's the most important part for me.
Mm-hmm.
Learning is the most important part for me, because if you don't read the book and learn and comprehend and understand, because it's two different things, to understand it and comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
But the main part of those two things are you have to put it in action.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn how to put things in action when I never had an example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And doing that, my wife says to me all the time, like, I do a great job with being a dad, because it's imperative to me and very important that I don't be what my dad was and don't leave out of their life, no matter how hard it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no matter what comes my way, I give it to God. I trust him and I let him guide me
Mm-hmm.
as far as parenting. And parents don't always get it right either, but we learn from our mistakes. And
Absolutely.
that's key. You know what I'm saying?
That's a part of the learning process. Like you said, hey, life is a classroom.
That's right,
Hey,
Dr. P.
fatherhood is a whole new lesson that we have to learn,
That's a
and we
fact.
have to unlearn some things as well. you know and for me, I just did the opposite of what my dad did. What I wanted my
Right,
dad to do, I started doing for my children. you know and I knew that's what I wanted as a kid. I didn't get it, but that's what I wanted, so I
right.
demonstrated that, those values. Man, it sounds like you're doing the same thing, and I want to commend you, because that's a difficult thing, man. Growing up in the hood, not having a father, having the streets pull on you, you know, getting recognition in the streets, and trying to get value in terms of who you are. And you would want to get that from your dad, but because of your dad not there, you get it from, because that void is still there.
You know
And it,
what's crazy though? I spent a lot of time trying to get recognition from people that didn't give me recognition. So I didn't really do it for the recognition. I
Mhm,
did it because that's simply what I wanted to do. I'm
that's
gonna just
great.
be honest. At
That's
one
really
point, it was about recognition, but once I saw that I wasn't getting recognition in the street, to hell with the recognition. I'm gonna do it because I'm Tig. This is what I want to do. This is what I choose to do, and this is who I choose to be. Now, even with that, right? I was trying to do that and be in the streets. Well, God had other plans, and He says, "Sit your butt down," like And what's crazy about it? Well, it's not really crazy to me, but for most people, what they understand and learn is God been talking to me the whole time, telling me to get out. Yo, get out of the street. Like, you just got married. And then it was through people that were my friends that were in the street heavy.
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
I mean, talking about heavy, heavy. Shout out to TV Bay, shout out to Sirs. You know what I'm saying? Those are two people that used to tell me, like, cuz, like, yo, you need to chill. You're doing too much. Like, and I'll be like, no, like, my man Flames, rest in peace. He was another one that used to say to me, like, yo, go home. Don't you got a wife and kids? Go home. You know what I'm saying? It's like, for me at that time, I was a knucklehead. I just didn't hear it. I couldn't receive the message until God sat me down and told me, like, yo, bro, like, you need to, it's time to give that up. It's a wrap. And
Mhm.
once I understood that in full, in its whole totality, was when what happened to me happened. Um,
Mhm.
Now with the music, I still speak about it in the music from time to time. Most of the music that's out that people have, I talk about it, but it was a part of my life at one point. So I'm not going to act like it wasn't a part of my life, even though that I changed and I'm not on that type time anymore. It still was a part of my life. It's a part of my DNA. Like you just said, my dad was in the streets heavy. You know what I'm saying? So it's a part of my DNA. So eventually I was going to do that anyway, because, that's what God speaks on. Now, the whole key to that is being a generational curse breaker, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
And once you get that residue off you, you change the trajectory for your whole family. And that's what I'm on, changing the trajectory for my whole family.
Well, you're definitely showing the listeners that with the odds against you doesn't mean you have to go against the odds. You know
That's
what I
the
mean?
fact.
And I want to commend you that if you had a shout out to these young folks based on your experience, what we've talked about, growing up without a dad, being shot in the head, being in the street, being in the system, using drugs, and then all of a sudden now you're a father. You have a wife. You got a podcast. You're trying to instill faith and encouragement to a community that they need to hear this, man. Because hey, most of our population, I hate to say it, is living that, and they don't overcome it until they're grown. And
Right.
then now they're trying to learn how to unlearn what they've been doing.
Right.
What would you say to them?
All right, Dr. P. So what I would say to them is, listen, you don't have to be what they said you'll be. You know what I'm saying? Me as a person, I just follow suit with everybody else. Be your own person. At that time when I was very young, and even in my early 20s, I just followed suit with everybody else because that was the thing to do. Especially in Philly, it's hard to get jobs. Employment won't hire the men. They're hiring all the women. I understand that. Find a way to create something for yourself to make money other than, the lanes that are there available, because you can become your own boss out here like I did. That's what I did. I became my own boss. I have businesses now. So it doesn't have to end in the result of you trying to do what they said you should do to the point you'll end up in jail. You know what I'm saying? There's always a brighter light at the end of the tunnel. Choose God. Choose family. Choose yourself. Because if you don't do those three things, it's nothing but bad things going to come from it anyway. No matter how much you put into it, no matter how much bread you get from it, it's either one thing. You're going to have the bread and be alone, or you're going to lose the bread and be alone. So, or you can die and be in jail and be alone. So those are three things. So those are your options for real, for real. So I would say get out the street. Just try to be more positive out here. Shout out to Black Lives Matter Grassroots. I'm starting my own chapter in North Carolina. I'm looking for more board members. If y'all want to jump on the board, y'all more than welcome. Listen, the podcast is on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And youth, try to, be more positive out here. Put the guns down. It's too many shooters. Everybody a shooter. Learn how to fight. I'll say that much.
All right. You heard it on the Blue Sky Show. I'm your host, Dr. P. My guest today is Tigmatic. You heard the conversation. Until the next time, be blessed. Go with God as God goes with you. God bless you.
Amen.